Welcome.
Marcus never planned to work nights, but rent in downtown Baltimore wasn't cheap, and the Riverside Grand Hotel was the only place hiring fast. During the day, the hotel looked respectable enough. Polished floors, smiling staff, tourists dragging suitcases across the lobby. But the moment midnight passed, the building felt different. The silence became heavier, like the walls were holding their breath. Even the air conditioning made long, hollow sounds that echoed through empty hallways. Marcus's shift started at 11 p.m., and by 1 a.m., boredom usually took over. Most guests were asleep, and the only activity came from late check-ins or drunk travelers asking for extra towels. That night seemed normal until the front desk phone rang sharply, breaking the silence. The caller ID displayed room 307. Marcus answered casually, expecting a complaint about noise or Wi-Fi. Instead, he heard faint breathing followed by a woman whispering, "Please, he's coming back." The line went dead. Marcus frowned and checked the system. Room 307 wasn't occupied. In fact, it wasn't even available for booking. The status read out of service, permanent. Thinking it was a system glitch, he called security, but the old guard downstairs simply said, "Ignore it," before hanging up. That response bothered Marcus more than the call itself. Curiosity got the better of him. He grabbed the master keycard and rode the elevator to the third floor. The hallway lights flickered slightly as he stepped out, and the carpet seemed older there, worn down compared to the other floors. When he reached room 307, the air felt noticeably colder. The door looked untouched, sealed for years. Yet Marcus swore he heard movement inside, slow pacing, like someone walking back and forth. He unlocked the door. Dust covered most surfaces, but the bed sheets were wrinkled, and the bathroom sink dripped steadily. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. Someone had been there recently. As he stepped further inside, the television suddenly turned on by itself, displaying black and white security footage dated 8 years earlier. A young woman appeared on screen arguing with a man wearing a hotel manager's uniform. The footage had no sound, but the anger in their movements was obvious. Suddenly the man shoved her, and the video cut to static. Marcus backed toward the door, but it slammed shut behind him with violent force. The temperature dropped instantly. The mirror across the room reflected movement that didn't match his own. For a brief second, he saw the woman standing behind him, her expression desperate. When he turned, she vanished. Heavy footsteps echoed from the bathroom, even though he knew no one had entered. Panic hit him hard. He yanked the door open and ran into the hallway, breathing fast. The elevator took forever to arrive, and during those long seconds he heard another set of footsteps approaching slowly from inside room 307. When the elevator finally opened, Marcus jumped inside and hit the lobby button repeatedly. Back downstairs, the night security guard finally told him the truth. Years ago, the hotel manager had been caught running illegal operations using guest rooms. A woman discovered everything and threatened to report him. That same night, she disappeared. Police suspected murder but never found the manager. After that, strange calls began coming from room 307 whenever the anniversary of her death approached. Marcus tried convincing himself it was just stress, but at exactly 3:07 a.m., the phone rang again. Same room number. This time he didn't answer. The elevator dinged softly instead, opening with no one inside. For a moment, Marcus saw wet footprints forming across the lobby floor, moving toward the exit as if someone invisible was finally leaving. The call stopped after that night, but Marcus noticed something strange before sunrise. The hotel system updated automatically, and for the first time in 8 years, room 307 briefly showed one status change. Checked out, 3:09 a.m. Marcus quit 2 days later. Even now, he refuses to stay in hotels, because sometimes when his phone rings late at night, the caller ID still flashes a number he never saved, 307. Ethan Cole had worked night security at different places before, but nothing felt as strange as the Hawthorne Plaza Hotel. The building stood in the older part of the city, surrounded by quiet streets that emptied completely after midnight. During the day, it looked modern and welcoming, but once Ethan started his overnight shifts, he realized the hotel had a different personality when most people were asleep. Sounds carried too far, elevators moved when no one called them, and sometimes the automatic lobby doors opened even when the street outside was empty. Ethan's job was simple: watch the cameras, walk the halls every hour, and make sure guests stayed safe. For the first few weeks, nothing unusual happened. Then one rainy Tuesday night, a man checked in around 2 a.m. He wore a dark coat despite the warm weather and avoided eye contact while signing the register. The receptionist later told Ethan something odd. The man refused to give ID, but somehow already had a reservation under the name Daniel Reed. Since the hotel was nearly empty, management allowed it without much thought. The guest took a key for room 428 and disappeared into the elevator. About 20 minutes later, Ethan noticed something strange on the security monitors. The camera inside the elevator showed no one, yet the floor numbers changed as if someone was riding it. When the doors opened on the 4th floor, the hallway camera also showed nothing leaving, but room 428's door slowly opened by itself and then closed again. Ethan assumed the system glitched, but a cold feeling settled in his chest that he couldn't explain. Around 3:15 a.m., the front desk received a complaint from a guest staying nearby. She said someone kept walking back and forth outside her room, stopping every few minutes like they were listening through the walls. Ethan went upstairs to check. The hallway was empty, silent except for the faint hum of lights. When he passed room 428, he heard breathing from inside, slow and uneven. He knocked and introduced himself, but the sound instantly stopped. No reply came, only silence heavy enough to make him uncomfortable. Back in the security room, Ethan replayed the hallway footage. What he saw made his stomach drop. The complaining guest's door opened several times during the night, but each time, she reacted as if someone stood there even though the camera showed empty space. At one point, she stepped back suddenly like someone had moved toward her. Ethan leaned closer to the screen, convinced something was wrong with the recording. Then the temperature alarm triggered on the 4th floor. Sensors showed a sudden drop in temperature near room 428. When Ethan returned upstairs, the air felt freezing and the lights flickered slightly. The door to 428 was cracked open. Inside, the room looked occupied, suitcase on the chair, water running in the sink, yet no one was visible. The mirror above the dresser caught Ethan's attention. For a split second, he saw a man standing behind him in the reflection, watching silently. Ethan spun around, but the room was empty again. Shaken, Ethan contacted the night manager, who reluctantly shared a story employees rarely discussed. Years earlier, a man matching the same description had stayed in room 428 shortly before committing a violent crime elsewhere in the city. Police believed he returned to the hotel afterward, but vanished before they could question him. Since then, staff occasionally reported a guest checking in under the same name, always late at night, always alone, yet cameras never captured his face. At 4 a.m., every monitor in the security room briefly went black. When the screens returned, Ethan saw room 428's door wide open. A shadow stretched across the hallway floor even though no person stood there. Slowly, the shadow moved toward the elevator. Ethan watched as the elevator doors opened by themselves, then closed again. The floor indicator dropped to the lobby. Moments later, the front doors slid open downstairs without anyone approaching. Rain blew inside as if someone invisible had just walked out. The system automatically logged a checkout under the name Daniel Reed, timestamped 4:07 a.m. The strange part was that no payment record existed, and the registration signature looked faded, almost erased. Morning staff dismissed Ethan's story as stress, but one detail haunted him. When housekeeping entered room 428 later that day, They found the bathroom mirror covered in condensation even though the shower was dry. Written clearly across the glass were 4 words traced by a finger from the inside. "I never left." Ethan quit a week later. Still, whenever he passes a hotel late at night and sees an elevator open with no one inside, he feels the same chill crawl up his spine because he knows some guests don't need cameras to exist. They only need a room number waiting for them. Ryan Mitchell never believed rumors, especially the kind hotel employees shared just to scare new staff. When he accepted a maintenance supervisor job at the old Crestwood Hotel, he expected long hours fixing plumbing and dealing with broken air conditioners, not listening to ghost stories in the break room. The hotel itself was massive, built sometime in the 1970s, renovated many times, but never enough to hide its age completely. Guests loved its vintage charm, but workers knew the building had areas management preferred not to talk about. In Ryan's first week, he noticed something strange while studying the building blueprints. The elevator panel listed 12 floors, yet the architectural plans clearly showed 13. At first, he assumed it was an old design change, but the numbering felt intentionally altered. The stairwell skipped directly from floor 12 to floor 14, and whenever Ryan asked coworkers about it, they either changed the subject or joked nervously. One older janitor finally told him quietly that the 13th floor had been removed after an incident years ago. Late one night, a guest complained that water was leaking through the ceiling of room 1216. Since Ryan was on duty, he grabbed his tools and took the elevator upstairs. As he worked, he heard a faint metallic thud above him, like footsteps coming from a floor that technically didn't exist. Assuming it was pipes shifting, he ignored it at first. But the sound repeated, slow walking, then dragging, as if something heavy moved across the ceiling. Curious, Ryan checked the elevator again. To his surprise, a hidden button sat behind a loose metal plate near the control panel. It wasn't labeled, just a blank circle worn from use. Against his better judgment, Ryan pressed it. The elevator shuddered and began moving upward longer than it should have. When the doors opened, he stepped into a hallway frozen in time. The wallpaper looked faded, the lights dim and yellow, and dust floated through the air untouched. Old luggage carts stood abandoned along the walls. Every door had outdated brass numbers, and a faint smell of smoke lingered everywhere. Ryan realized immediately this had to be the missing 13th floor. As he walked forward, distant music echoed softly, like an old party still happening somewhere far away. One room door stood open, revealing suitcases packed neatly as if guests planned to return any minute. Suddenly, Ryan heard laughter followed by shouting down the corridor. The sounds cut off abruptly, replaced by silence so deep it made his ears ring. He felt watched, though no one appeared. At the end of the hallway, he discovered a burned section of carpet and dark marks climbing the walls toward the ceiling. Memories from staff rumors clicked together in his mind. Years ago, a fire had broken out during a crowded convention. Official reports claimed everyone escaped, but employees whispered that several guests were trapped when management locked certain exits to prevent theft during the chaos. The hotel later sealed the entire floor and rewrote its history. The lights flickered violently, and Ryan suddenly heard footsteps behind him. When he turned, figures appeared along the hallway, faint silhouettes of people dressed in outdated clothing, standing silently outside room doors. Their expressions looked confused rather than angry, like guests still waiting for instructions that never came. One woman stepped forward slowly and asked if the evacuation was finally over. Her voice sounded distant, echoing unnaturally. Fear hit Ryan all at once. He backed toward the elevator, but the doors refused to open. The silhouettes began moving closer, their calm expressions shifting into desperation. The temperature dropped sharply, and smoke filled the air though nothing burned. Ryan slammed the button repeatedly until the elevator finally opened with a loud ding. As he stepped inside, he saw dozens of shadowy figures filling the corridor behind him. reaching forward as if begging him not to leave. The doors closed just in time. When Ryan returned to the 12th floor, everything felt normal again. Bright lights, clean carpet, distant sounds of guests talking. Shaken, he reported what he saw to the hotel manager. Instead of denying it, the manager quietly admitted the truth. The 13th floor still existed physically, but it was sealed after lawsuits and bad publicity. Employees were warned never to access it because strange events kept happening whenever someone did. Ryan tried convincing himself it had been stress or imagination, but the next morning he noticed soot marks on his work boots that hadn't been there before. Even worse, the elevator maintenance log showed an entry automatically recorded during the night. Floor 13, door open, 3 minutes, 11 seconds. Ryan resigned a month later. Yet sometimes, when staying in other hotels during travel jobs, he notices elevators that pause briefly between floors without explanation. And every time the door is almost open, he feels certain that somewhere above him, a forgotten floor is still waiting, filled with guests who never checked out in a hallway that refuses to disappear.